Young billionaire gives $20 to poor girl cleaning cars at a stoplight. She says, "You look just like my daddy." When he sees the photo, he's paralyzed. Noah Bennett hated traffic lights. Every time his black Aston Martin stopped at one, the outside world invaded his perfectly controlled space. He adjusted the knot of his tie while observing the line of cars in front of him. All stopped, all powerless against the small red circle that dictated their lives. That's when he saw her. A little girl, no more than 5 or 6 years old, weaving between the cars with a spray bottle and a shabby cloth in her hands. She wore a faded yellow t-shirt and denim shorts that seemed too big for her small frame. Her dark hair was tied in 2 messy braids. Noah pressed the button to lock the doors, an automatic reflex. He didn't like this kind of approach. In fact, he didn't like any kind of approach. His eyes fixed on the digital clock on the dashboard, 9:42. The meeting with the investors would start in 18 minutes. He had plenty of time. But he hated not arriving at least half an hour early. The girl was now 2 cars away. Noah noticed that, unlike most children who roamed the intersections, she actually cleaned the windshields. Her movements were methodical and careful, as if this makeshift job deserved all her dedication. The car ahead moved, and Noah realized the light had turned green. He honked lightly, but the driver in front of him seemed distracted by their phone. By the time they finally moved, the light had already turned red again. Noah let out an exasperated sigh. The girl saw him and smiled, a genuine smile, without the weight of pleading that usually accompanied these encounters. Noah looked away, pretending to check his messages on his phone. Noah watched the girl as she cleaned the windshield of the car in front of him. Her movements were methodical and careful, as if this makeshift job deserved all her dedication. When she finished, the driver handed her a few coins, which she carefully put in her pocket. Upon noticing the Aston Martin, the girl's eyes lit up. She approached with her spray bottle and cloth. "Can I clean your window, mister?" Her voice came muffled through the closed window. Noah kept looking at his phone, pretending not to hear. But something about that child caught his attention. Maybe it was the determination in her eyes or the way she worked so carefully. Noah lowered the window a few inches and, before she could start cleaning, he reached for his wallet. He took out a $20 bill and held it out to her. "You don't have to clean it. Here, this is for you." The girl's eyes widened when she saw the bill. $20? Wow, thank you. She took the money carefully, as if it was something precious. "That's very kind, sir." "You're welcome," Noah replied, checking his watch again, 9:46. The girl carefully tucked the bill into her pocket and then looked at Noah more closely. Her eyes suddenly widened. "Wait," she exclaimed. "You look just like my daddy." Noah forced a polite smile. He was used to people thinking they recognized him, confusing him with celebrities, or trying to establish some kind of connection to prolong the contact. "That's nice. Thank you, but I really need to—" "Look here." The girl pulled a crumpled photograph from her pocket, one of those printed on cheap photo paper. "This is my daddy. You look the same." Out of politeness, Noah glanced at the photo. His heart stopped. He was completely paralyzed. The image showed a man sitting on a worn-out couch with the little girl on his lap. The man was smiling at the camera, and his smile was Noah's smile. Not a vague resemblance or a coincidence. It was his face, his eyes, his dark hair with the same receding hairline, even the small scar above his right eyebrow. Noah couldn't move. He couldn't speak. His mind tried to process what his eyes were seeing, but it was as if his entire body had frozen in front of that impossible image. "Where did you get this?" The question finally came out, almost a whisper. "It's my daddy," she repeated proudly. "His name is Caleb." Noah kept staring at the photo, stunned. It was like looking in a mirror, except he would never wear that faded t-shirt or sit on that worn-out couch. The man in the photo was clearly thinner, with more pronounced expression lines, but the resemblance was terrifying. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice coming out strangely hoarse. "Ellie. Elizabeth. But everyone calls me Ellie." Noah looked from the photo to the girl. The light turned green and horns started honking behind him. "I have to go now," he said, handing the photo back to Ellie, who carefully put it back in her pocket. "Bye, mister," Thanks for the money! Ellie waved as Noah sped off. He accelerated, leaving the girl behind, but taking with him the image he had just captured, and a disturbing feeling he couldn't name. On the way to the office, Noah tried to focus on the imminent meeting, on the charts he needed to present, on the questions he needed to answer, but his mind kept returning to that photo, to that face identical to his. The image of the man was etched in his memory, the same features, the same smile, even the same scar. How was it possible? Who was this man named Caleb? He parked in his reserved spot in the garage of the imposing Bennett Enterprises building. His empire. Dozens of floors of glass and steel that he had built practically on his own. As he rode the private elevator up to the boardroom, Noah felt as if something fundamental had changed, as if the foundation of his existence had cracked. Could it be a distant relative? A cousin he had never heard of? Or was it something more, something that would explain why he always felt like a piece out of place, even in his own life? The elevator reached the executive floor, and Noah took a deep breath. He adjusted his tie, straightened his shoulders, and put on his professional mask, that of the confident, unshakable billionaire. But the image of that man, of that other me sitting on a worn-out couch, remained engraved in his mind. And Noah knew, with a certainty that frightened him, that his orderly and predictable life had just been completely turned upside down. The meeting with the investors was a blur. Noah spoke, smiled, answered questions, and closed deals like an automaton. His body was present, but his mind was wandering far away. No one noticed anything different, perhaps because his mask of the ruthless CEO was so perfect that no one dared to question it. When he finally returned to his office, he locked the door and sank into his leather chair. The image of that man, Caleb, wouldn't leave his head. It wasn't just a casual resemblance. It was like seeing himself in another context, another life. "This is impossible," he muttered to himself, swiveling his chair to face the panoramic window. The city stretched out at his feet, his empire, built with determination and calculated coldness. He never looked back, never questioned his path, until now. The phone rang, but he let his secretary handle it. He needed to think. He needed to understand what was happening. A memory surfaced, as if it had been waiting for this moment to emerge. Noah was 7 years old and in his parents' room. His father was traveling, and his mother had gone out to dinner with friends. The nanny was watching television downstairs. With the typical curiosity of a child, he rummaged through the drawers of his mother's dresser. At the back of one of them, he found an old jewelry box. Inside, among necklaces and earrings, was a small, yellowed piece of paper, folded several times. When he opened it, he saw just one sentence written by hand: "Take good care of him." At the time, he didn't understand. He thought it was some romantic note from his father. When his mother caught him meddling with the box, she quickly put the paper away and said they were just old mementos. Noah forgot the incident until now. Take good care of him. The words echoed in his mind. Noah picked up the phone and called his secretary. "Janet, cancel my appointments for the rest of the day." "But sir, the meeting with the board..." "Cancel everything. A family emergency has come up." Family emergency. Those words had never left his mouth before. Family was something that existed in the background of his life. His parents lived their own lives in their mansion in the suburbs, and he rarely visited them more than twice a year, on carefully planned holidays. The drive to his parents' house seemed endless. The driver tried to make small talk a few times, but soon realized Noah was lost in thought and respected his silence. The Bennett mansion was exactly as Noah remembered it, imposing, with perfectly manicured gardens and a circular driveway where luxury cars could park. Growing up there meant being surrounded by privilege, but also by expectations. Richard and Elizabeth Bennett were known in their social circle for having raised an exemplary son who exceeded all expectations in school, university, and business. A perfect son, a perfect heir. But what if he wasn't really theirs? Mr. Bennett, what a surprise! The housekeeper, Mrs. Collins, opened the door with a genuine smile. She had worked for the family since before Noah was born, and was the only person in that house who showed affection without reservation. Your parents are in the sunroom. Thank you, Mrs. Collins. Noah smiled at the woman, remembering how she used to make cookies for him after school. Are they expecting me? No, sir. They didn't mention any visitors today. Better that way. Noah didn't want to give them time to prepare answers or rehearse reactions. The sunroom was at the back of the mansion, a glass and metal structure that housed his mother's collection of rare plants. As he approached, Noah heard his parents' voices chatting calmly. I think we should accept the Hamiltons' invitation for the summer. Their lake house is wonderful, and it's been a while since we've taken a vacation, Elizabeth was saying. Perhaps, Richard replied, with that deep, controlled voice Noah knew so well. It depends on my meeting schedule in July. Typical. His father never gave a definitive answer about anything that wasn't work-related. Noah stopped at the sunroom door, watching them for a moment. Elizabeth, always elegant in her expensive clothes, was tending to an orchid with gardening gloves that probably cost more than the housekeeper's weekly salary. Richard was sitting in a wicker armchair, reading the financial newspaper, his reading glasses balanced on the tip of his nose. Both were in their 60s, but maintained the impeccable appearance of people who had always had the resources to take care of themselves. Richard had perfectly cut grey hair, and Elizabeth still had the straight posture of someone who had attended the best finishing schools. Noah! Elizabeth was the first to notice him. The surprise on her face was genuine. What are you doing here on a Tuesday? Richard lowered the newspaper, his eyebrows slightly raised, the most expression his face usually showed. Son, did something happen with the company? Always his father's first concern. No, the company is fine. Noah entered the sunroom, feeling the humid warmth of the environment. I need to talk to you about something personal. Elizabeth and Richard exchanged a quick glance. Personal conversations were not common in the Bennett family. Shall sit down then? Richard indicated a nearby chair. Would you like something to drink? No, thank you. Noah remained standing. Suddenly, he felt like a child again, about to be reprimanded for some mischief. Something strange happened today. I met someone who looks exactly like me. The silence that followed was telling. Elizabeth placed the plant mister down with excessive care. Richard adjusted his glasses, a gesture Noah knew was a sign of nervousness. What do you mean by exactly? Richard asked, trying to keep his tone casual. I mean, I saw a photo of a man who could be my twin brother. Same eyes, same nose, same chin. Noah paused, watching them closely. Even the same scar above the eyebrow. Elizabeth's hand went to her pearl necklace, another revealing sign. Noah knew his parents' little gestures well. They were people who lived by controlling their reactions, but they had nervous tics that escaped in moments of tension. It must be a coincidence, she said, with forced lightness. They say everyone has 7 doppelgangers in the world, don't they? It's not a coincidence, Noah replied firmly, and you know it. Richard stood up, setting the newspaper aside with exaggerated care. Noah, what are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking directly. Am I adopted? Time seemed to freeze in the sunroom. The only sound was the dripping of the automatic irrigation system and the ticking of the old wall clock. Richard and Elizabeth looked at each other again. After all these years together, they could communicate without words. It was Elizabeth who finally spoke, her voice softer than Noah had ever heard. Noah, dear, please, sit down. This time, he obeyed. His legs suddenly felt too weak to support him. Elizabeth sat next to her husband, both now facing their son. Richard ran a hand through his grey hair, another rare nervous gesture. Yes, Noah. You were adopted, Richard said finally. But you are our son in every way that matters. Noah felt as if the air had been sucked out of his lungs. Even though he had suspected, hearing the confirmation was different. It was real. Why did you never tell me? The words came out more accusatory than he intended. We wanted to protect you, Elizabeth replied, her eyes now teary, something Noah had rarely seen in his entire life. It was a decision we made a long time ago. Protect me from what? From the truth about who I am. Richard leaned forward. Noah, You have always known who you are. You are our son. The fact that we don't share the same blood has never diminished that. How did it happen? Noah needed to know. Who are my biological parents? Elizabeth took Richard's hand as if seeking strength. It was almost 30 years ago, she began. We had been trying to have children for a long time, without success. We went through various treatments, consulted specialists. Nothing worked. Richard continued. One night, we were at home, this house, when the doorbell rang. It was late, almost midnight. I went to answer it. Noah listened intently, his heart racing. Then when I opened the door, Richard went on, there was no one there, just a basket. A basket, Noah repeated, incredulous. Elizabeth nodded. A wicker basket, like the ones for picnics. And inside it was you, Richard finished. A baby of about 3 months, sleeping peacefully. Noah tried to process this information. It sounded like something out of an old movie or book, not his own life. There was a note, Elizabeth continued, her voice almost a whisper, a small, folded piece of paper. What did it say? Take good care of him. Elizabeth wiped away a tear. Just that. 4 words. Take good care of him. The same words from the note Noah had found in his mother's jewelry box so many years ago. What did you do then? He asked, trying to imagine his parents, younger, childless, finding an abandoned baby on their doorstep. We panicked, initially, Richard admitted. We called the police. They searched for the person who left you, investigated but never found anything. In the meantime, Elizabeth continued, you stayed with us, and with each passing day, we fell more in love with you, Richard completed, with a rare emotion in his voice. When the authorities suggested placing you in formal adoption, we couldn't part with you. We used our connections, hired lawyers, Elizabeth said. We managed a quick and discreet adoption. Within 6 months, you were legally our son. Noah stood up, walking to the large window of the sunroom. Outside, the impeccable garden stretched to the property line. His whole life had been like this, orderly, planned, privileged, but now he discovered that his beginning had been completely different. And my biological parents. Did you ever try to find out who they were? Richard and Elizabeth exchanged another look. We did try, Richard answered. We hired private investigators, but we never found anything concrete. No records, no leads. Over time, Elizabeth continued, we decided it was probably for the best. If someone had left you on our doorstep, instead of going through official adoption channels, they must have had their reasons. And you decided never to tell me. Noah turned to face them. All my life I felt like something was missing, that I didn't quite fit in. And now I understand why. Noah, we have loved you from the first moment, Elizabeth said, getting up and approaching her son. We never doubted, not for a second, that you were our son. We decided not to tell you because we wanted to protect you from the pain of abandonment, Richard explained. We didn't want you to grow up wondering why someone would leave you in a basket on a cold night. Noah closed his eyes for a moment. Part of him wanted to scream, to accuse, to vent all the confusion and anger he felt. But another part understood his parents' fear, the fear of losing him, of him feeling less a part of the family. And now, Noah said finally, there's someone out there who looks exactly like me, someone who could be my brother. Richard stood up as well. The man you saw today, are you sure about the resemblance? Absolutely. I didn't see him in person, just a photo, but it was like looking in a mirror. Elizabeth looked worried. What are you going to do? Noah looked at his parents, the people who had raised him, who had given him everything they had, even if he wasn't their blood. Despite their flaws, despite the secrets, he knew they loved him. I have to find him, he answered. I need to know who he is. What if it leads to painful discoveries? Richard asked. What if it opens wounds that are better left closed? Noah shook his head. You hid the truth to protect me from pain. I understand that now, but I'm not a child anymore. I have the right to know my story, even if it hurts. Elizabeth took her son's hands in hers. No matter what you discover, Noah, you will always have a home here. You will always be our son. For a moment, Noah saw his mother not as the cold, controlled woman she had always seemed, but as someone who had carried a secret fear for decades, the fear of losing her son to the truth. "Thank you for finally telling me," he said. "I know it wasn't easy." Richard placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "And what can we do to help?" The question surprised Noah. His father had always been practical, always focused on solutions, but rarely offered direct help. "I need to find the little girl who showed me the photo. She said the man is her father. If I can find her, I'll find him." "Do you have any idea where to look?" Elizabeth asked. Noah thought of little Ellie, with her cloth and spray bottle, cleaning windshields at a busy intersection. "I'll start at the place where I saw her today. It's all I have for now." As he said goodbye to his parents, Noah felt something shift inside him. The initial anger over the lie kept for so many years was still there, but now mixed with understanding. And stronger than anything, there was a new determination. Somewhere in the city, there was a man with his face, a man who could be the key to understanding who he really was. In the car, on the way back to the city center, Noah felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time: fear of the unknown. His life had always been meticulously planned, every step calculated for success. Now he was about to enter completely uncharted territory, and for the first time, he had no idea what he would find. 3 days had passed since Noah discovered the truth about his adoption. 3 days in which he had barely been able to sleep, work, or think about anything other than that photo. That face identical to his. The traffic light looked the same. The cars, the impatient honks, the heat rising from the asphalt. Noah parked his Aston Martin a few blocks away and walked there. He didn't want to draw attention with his luxury car. For an hour, he watched from a distance, looking for Ellie among the street vendors and windshield cleaners working in the area. He was starting to lose hope when he finally saw her. The same faded yellow t-shirt, the same messy braids. She worked with the same dedication Noah had observed the first time. Between one car and the next, she tucked coins into a small pocket sewn onto the side of her shorts. Her face showed a seriousness that didn't belong to such a young child. Noah approached slowly, waiting for her to finish cleaning the windshield of an SUV. When the girl turned around, she almost bumped into him. "Hi, Ellie," Noah said. Her eyes widened in immediate recognition. "It's the money man, the one who looks like my daddy." Noah couldn't help but smile. The child's spontaneity was refreshing after days surrounded by calculating adults in corporate meetings. "You remember me?" "Of course I remember. You gave me $20. She smiled, showing a gap where a baby tooth was missing. "Do you want me to clean your car again?" "Actually, I'm on foot today." Noah looked around, feeling strangely nervous. "Are you hungry? We could get something to eat, if you want." Ellie frowned, studying him with suspicion. It was clear that despite her young age, she already knew not to trust strangers. "I can't go. I have to work." "Daddy's waiting for the money." Noah nodded, respecting her caution. "I understand. What if we eat right over there?" He pointed to a diner across the street. "You can see me from the window the whole time, and no one passing by will think you abandoned your post." Ellie bit her lip, considering the offer. "Can I pick anything from the menu?" "Anything," Noah confirmed. "So even a chocolate milkshake, especially a chocolate milkshake." The smile that lit up her face was like a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day. Ellie carefully hid her spray bottle and cloth behind a trash can, a clearly familiar hiding spot, and followed Noah to the diner. It was a simple establishment, the kind that served coffee all day and had laminated menus with pictures of the dishes. The waitress, a middle-aged woman with grey hair in a hairnet, raised her eyebrows upon seeing Noah in his expensive suit, accompanied by a child in worn clothes. "Table for 2, please," Noah requested, ignoring the curious glance. They sat by the window, from where Ellie could monitor her workplace. She knelt on the seat to better reach the table and picked up the menu with almost solemn reverence. "I've never eaten in a real restaurant," she confessed in a low voice, as if sharing a secret. Noah felt a pang in his chest. "Never," Ellie shook her head. "Daddy says it's too expensive." "We eat at home." The waitress approached, order pad in hand. "What'll it be?" "A chocolate milkshake, a hamburger with fries, and—" Ellie looked at Noah as if asking for permission to continue. "And dessert," he suggested. Her face lit up. And a slice of apple pie with ice cream. The waitress wrote down the order, then turned to Noah. Just a coffee, please. Black. When the waitress walked away, Ellie studied Noah with childish curiosity. You're rich, right? Your watch is really shiny. Noah instinctively touched his Rolex. I own a company. I sell things to other companies. What kind of things? Software. Computer programs. Ellie nodded as if she understood perfectly, although it was obvious she had no idea what he was talking about. My daddy used to sell things too. He worked at a big electronics store, Noah suggested. That's it. He used to fix the computers when they broke. But then the store closed, and now he does odd jobs. Noah tried to imagine Caleb, the man from the photo who was his mirror image, fixing computers in an electronics store. Was he as good with technology as Noah? Was it another coincidence or something genetic? And you help your dad by cleaning windshields? Ellie nodded with pride. I started when I turned 5. Now I'm almost 6 and I'm a professional. A professional, huh? And you don't go to school? The question made Ellie look down, suddenly shy. Daddy says I'll start next year. He's saving money for books and a uniform. She sighed. The public school is far from home. You have to take a bus. Daddy says it's expensive. The waitress returned with the milkshake, and Ellie immediately put the straw in the drink, sipping enthusiastically. Noah watched as a chocolate mustache formed above her upper lip. And your mum? He asked, trying to sound casual. Ellie's smile vanished. Mommy's in heaven. Daddy says she became a star when I was born. Noah felt a lump in his throat. I'm sorry, Ellie, she shrugged. With that resilience only children possess. It's okay. Daddy says she watches over me from up there, and he takes care of me down here. The hamburger arrived, and Ellie attacked it with a voracious appetite. Noah noticed she ate like someone who doesn't know when their next decent meal will be. Fast, focused, saving a French fry in her pocket for later. You don't have to save it for later, Noah said gently. You can eat it all now. Ellie seemed embarrassed. It's just that sometimes we don't have much at home. Daddy always says we have to make the food last until the end of the month. Noah felt a tightness in his chest. You have a hard time. Ellie took a big bite of her hamburger before answering. Sometimes, when Daddy can't find work, we eat pasta for several days in a row. But it's okay, I like pasta. She paused. Last month was hard because the shower broke and Daddy had to pay a man to fix it. Then there was no money left for the grocery store. Between bites, she continued talking about her life. We live in a small apartment, but it has a big window where the sun comes in the morning. I make my toys near it. What kind of toys? I make dolls out of plastic bottles. I cut them, draw a face, make clothes out of paper, and action figures too. I made one just like Daddy. She smiled, proud. I also make houses out of shoeboxes and cars out of bottle caps. Noah tried to imagine this child creating her own world of fun from recycled trash, while he had grown up with the most expensive toys money could buy. You're very creative, Emily. What's a creative? It means you have good ideas, that you can make interesting things with what you have. She smiled, clearly pleased with the compliment, even without fully understanding its meaning. Daddy says I'm smart too. He teaches me letters and numbers at home. I can already count to 100 and write my whole name. Elisabeth. Elizabeth, Noah repeated. It's a beautiful name. It was my grandma's name. Daddy said she's in heaven too. The dessert arrived, and Ellie attacked the apple pie with the same enthusiasm. Between spoonfuls, she continued, Did you know that last month we almost had to move? The landlord came and yelled at Daddy because we were late with the rent. She lowered her voice, as if telling a secret. Daddy cried after the man left. He thought I was sleeping, but I saw him. Noah felt a lump in his throat. And what happened? Daddy got a 3-day job loading boxes at a store. He hurt his back, but he managed to pay the rent. She took a generous spoonful of ice cream. That's why I clean windows. Every little bit helps, Daddy says. Noah found himself observing every detail, the way she wrinkled her nose when she laughed, how she swung her legs that didn't reach the floor, how her eyes shone when she talked about her father, even when describing difficult situations. There was something familiar about her, beyond the obvious resemblance to the man in the photo. Something in her gestures, in her expression, or maybe it was just his imagination, desperate to find connections. "Ellie," he said, when she finished her dessert, "I would really like to meet your father." The girl licked her spoon, thoughtful. Why? How could he explain to a 5-year-old that he suspected her father might be his brother? That they might have both been abandoned, separated, raised in completely different worlds? Because I think we might be related," he answered, opting for a half-truth. Ellie studied him with those big, intelligent eyes. "Is that why you look alike?" "Maybe." She considered the information with an almost comical seriousness on her small face. "Daddy will like you. He's nice, but he gets sad sometimes when he thinks I'm not looking." Noah felt something strangely protective surge within him, not just for Ellie, but also for this man he had never met. "Can I go home with you today? To meet him?" Ellie bit her lip, considering, "I think so." "Daddy always says not to bring strangers home, but you're not a stranger. You look like him, so you must be family, right?" The child's logic was irrefutable in its simplicity. Noah paid the bill, leaving a generous tip that made the waitress smile. As they prepared to leave, Ellie took his hand naturally, as if it were something they always did. The feeling was strange for Noah. He couldn't remember the last time someone had held his hand like that, without ulterior motives, without expecting anything in return. It was a gesture of pure trust, and he found himself emotionally disarmed by something so simple. "I have to get my things," Ellie said when they left the diner. She ran to the trash can where she had hidden her spray bottle and cloth, carefully putting them in a small, worn-out backpack. "Ready?" Noah asked. Ellie nodded, taking his hand again. "This way. It's not too far, but we have to cross the park." As they walked, Noah tried to imagine the man he was about to meet. The man with his face, who lived a life so different from his own. A man raising a daughter alone, struggling to pay the bills, who cried in secret when he thought no one was watching. "Daddy's making pasta today," Ellie said, skipping alongside Noah. "It's what we eat when money's running out, but he makes a good sauce." Noah felt a lump in his throat. While he dined at Michelin-starred restaurants, this man, possibly his brother, counted coins to feed his daughter. "I'm sure it will be delicious," he replied. They crossed the park, where Ellie pointed out her favorite swing and the tree where she once saw a squirrel. Then they followed a few residential streets until they reached an old brick building. The paint was peeling on the exterior walls, and some windows had broken panes patched with duct tape. "We live on the 3rd floor," Ellie explained. "The elevator's been broken for a long time, so you have to take the stairs." Noah looked at the building, trying to process that someone with his face, or possibly his own blood, lived in these conditions. The disparity between their lives was abysmal. "Let's go," Ellie said, pulling his hand enthusiastically. "Daddy's going to be so surprised to see you." As they climbed the dark, narrow stairs, Noah Bennett, the lonely billionaire, felt his heart race. In a few minutes, he would be face to face with the man from the photo. The man who could be the key to understanding his past, his origins, his true identity. The man who, without knowing it, had already changed his life forever. The apartment was small, but surprisingly clean and organized. A living room that merged with the kitchen, 2 tiny bedrooms and a bathroom. The entire space wouldn't be larger than the master closet in the mansion where Noah grew up. "You can sit," Ellie said, pointing to a worn-out sofa covered with a colorful blanket that disguised the rips in the upholstery. "This is where we watch TV when Daddy isn't working." Noah sat down awkwardly, feeling the sofa sink under his weight. The springs creaked in protest. On the wall in front of him, there was a small old television on a makeshift table made of painted wooden crates. "Want to see my toys while we wait for Daddy?" Ellie was already running to her room before Noah could even answer. Alone for a moment, Noah observed the environment. On the walls, there were children's drawings taped up, clearly Ellie's work. A small table in the corner of the room held notebooks and colored pencils, neatly organized. Through the open window, a warm breeze came in, swaying a curtain made of patchwork fabric. There was something in the atmosphere of that simple place that touched Noah. It wasn't a magazine-perfect apartment. It had no designer furniture or expensive works of art, but it had life. It had personality. It had warmth. Ellie returned carrying a shoebox. She sat next to Noah on the sofa and opened her treasure. "Look, this is Mrs. Mary," she introduced, holding up a doll made from a plastic bottle. The doll had a face drawn with a permanent marker and hair made of colored yarn. It wore a dress made of fabric scraps, hand-stitched with uneven stitches. "She's very beautiful," Noah said, genuinely impressed by the creativity. "This is Mr. Carlos," Ellie continued, showing a doll made from a toilet paper roll. "And this," she picked up another doll made from a smaller bottle, "is Daddy." Noah took the doll carefully. The resemblance was impressive, considering the limited materials. Whoever had helped Ellie make it was skilled. The sound of a key turning in the lock interrupted the conversation. Ellie jumped off the sofa, excited. "It's Daddy!" Noah felt his heart race. He stood up, instinctively adjusting his expensive tie, as if he were about to enter a business meeting and not meet someone who could be his brother. The door opened, and Caleb walked in. He wore faded jeans and a simple grey t-shirt. He carried a grocery bag in one hand and a toolbox in the other. His face showed the fatigue of a long day. "Daddy!" Ellie ran to hug him. "Guess what? I found a man who looks just like you." Caleb smiled at his daughter, putting the bag and the box on the floor so he could pick her up. It was only then that he looked up and saw Noah. Time seemed to freeze. Caleb stood completely still holding Ellie in his arms. His expression shifted from fatherly affection to absolute shock in a matter of seconds. His eyes, the same as Noah's, widened, and his mouth fell slightly open. Noah was also paralyzed. The photo Ellie had shown him hadn't prepared him for this. It was like looking in a mirror, but a mirror that showed an alternate version of himself. A Noah who had lived another life, faced other struggles, made different choices, or perhaps had different choices made for him. The silence was absolute. Even Ellie, normally chatty, seemed to understand the gravity of the moment and remained quiet, looking from one to the other with fascination. Who are you?" Caleb finally managed to say, his voice almost a whisper. Noah took a step forward, trying to find words that could explain the inexplicable. "My name is Noah Bennett. I met Ellie a few days ago when she was cleaning windshields at the stoplight on 5th Avenue. She showed me a picture of you and—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Well, you can see why I'm here." Caleb gently put Ellie down, as if operating on autopilot. His eyes never left Noah's face. "Ellie, sweetheart," he said, his voice strangely calm. "Can you go to your room for a little bit? I need to talk to Mr. Bennett." "But Daddy, I want to—" "Please, Ellie." It was a request that brooked no argument, though it was made kindly. Ellie looked at Noah, then at her father, clearly disgruntled, but she obeyed. "Okay. But I want to know everything later." She picked up her toy box and shuffled to her room, closing the door behind her. Caleb and Noah were left alone, staring at each other in a silence heavy with unspoken questions. "Do you want some coffee?" Caleb finally offered, his voice tense, as if he were trying to cling to some normality in a completely surreal situation. Yes, thank you," Noah replied, grateful for the opportunity to break the tension. Caleb went to the small kitchen and began to prepare the coffee, his movements mechanical, as if he needed something to occupy his hands. Noah remained standing in the living room, watching the man who was his mirror image perform a mundane task. "Are you sure this isn't some kind of joke?" Caleb asked, his back to Noah as he measured the coffee. "Some TV show about lookalikes or something?" "I'm sure," Noah replied. "Believe me, I'm as surprised as you are." Caleb turned true, facing Noah again. His eyes studied every detail of the other man's face, as if searching for some difference that could explain it all away as a strange coincidence. "The scar," he said suddenly, pointing to his own right eyebrow, where he had a small mark. "You have it too." Noah instinctively touched his own scar, a thin mark above his right eyebrow. "Yes, I've had it as long as I can remember." "Me too." The coffee started to brew, and Caleb turned to switch off the stove. He poured 2 cups, one of them with a small chip on the rim, and handed the intact one to Noah. "Let's sit," he suggested, gesturing to the sofa. They sat, each at one end of the small sofa, as if they needed physical space to process the genetic proximity that was obvious to both of them. "Are you adopted?" Caleb asked directly, holding his coffee cup with both hands. Noah nodded. "I found out recently. My parents told me after I saw your photo with Ellie." "Me too." Caleb took a sip of coffee. "I've always known. My adoptive mother never hid it from me." "Your adoptive mother?" Noah leaned forward slightly. "And your father?" "I never knew my adoptive father. He left my mother when I was a baby." Caleb gave a sad smile. "It seems abandonment is a recurring theme in my life." Noah felt a lump in his throat. While he had grown up in a mansion with two parents, emotionally distant but present and financially stable, Caleb had apparently had a very different childhood. "How was your adoption?" Noah asked. "My parents told me I was left in a basket on their doorstep, with a note." Caleb nearly choked on his coffee. "What? Seriously?" "Yes. The note just said, 'Take good care of him.'" Caleb placed his cup on the makeshift coffee table, his hands trembling slightly. "My adoptive mother found me on a park bench, also in a basket." He paused, looking directly into Noah's eyes, with a note that said, "Take good care of him." The silence that followed was deafening. The implications were clear to both of them. "We're brothers," Noah said finally, voicing what they both already knew. "Maybe even twins." "Separated at birth," Caleb completed. "Like in one of those old movies that nobody believes happens in real life." They stared at each other again, each absorbing the reality of the other. The same DNA, the same features, the same origin, and completely different lives. "Your adoptive mother," Noah began. "Is she still alive?" Caleb nodded. "Yes, Margaret. She lives a few blocks from here. She's sick. Heart problems. I've been taking care of her for years." "Margaret," Noah repeated, testing the name. "I'd like to meet her." "She'll like you," Caleb said with a small smile. "She always said I must have a brother out there somewhere, something about the basket being too big for just one baby." Caleb got up and went to a small bookshelf in the corner of the room. He picked up a simple photo frame and returned to the sofa. "This is Margaret," he said, handing the photo to Noah. "My mom." Noah took the frame carefully. The photo showed a woman of about 60, with grey hair tied in a simple bun. She had a kind face, with wrinkles at the corners of her eyes that suggested a life of smiles, despite the hardships. She wore a modest floral dress and was sitting on a park bench with a small book in her hands. Something in the woman's expression, in the kindness of her eyes, touched Noah deeply. This was the woman who had raised his brother, who had loved him, who had sacrificed everything for him. A woman who had never known material wealth, but who clearly possessed a richness of spirit that money couldn't buy. Without warning, Noah felt his eyes well up with tears. He tried to hold them back, but it was too late. A tear ran down his face, followed by another. I'm sorry," he said, trying to compose himself, wiping his face with his hand. "I don't know what's happening to me." Caleb watched him with a mixture of surprise and understanding. "It's okay," he said softly. "It's a lot to process at once." Noah looked at the photo again, feeling an inexplicable connection to this woman he had never met. "She looks so kind," he managed to say, his voice choked with emotion. "She is," Caleb confirmed. "The kindest person I've ever known. Even when we had almost nothing, she always found a way to help someone who was worse off than us." Noah couldn't explain the intensity of his reaction. It was as if, suddenly, all the emotions he had kept under control his entire life, the feeling of displacement, the search for connection, the inexplicable emptiness, had surfaced all at once upon seeing the face of the woman who could have been his mother in another life. "And now," Noah asked, wiping away the last tears and trying to regain control, "your life now? Ellie mentioned you don't have a steady job." "I'm doing odd jobs, freelance work. Today I helped stock a furniture store. Tomorrow I'm fixing the electrical wiring in a restaurant." Caleb sighed. "I was an electronics technician at a big department store, but they closed the branch 6 months ago." Since then, it's been hard to find something stable. And Ellie's mother, Noah asked softly. Caleb's expression changed, becoming darker. Sarah died in childbirth. Complications. The doctors tried to save her, but... He shook his head. It was almost 6 years ago. Ellie never knew her mother. I'm so sorry, Noah said, and he truly meant it. I do what I can, Caleb continued. For Ellie, for my mum. It's not easy, but we get by. Noah watched the man before him, his brother. He saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. And yet, there was a dignity about him, a strength that Noah admired instantly. Ellie's bedroom door opened slowly, and she peeked through the crack. Can I come back now? Caleb smiled. Come here, princess. Ellie ran to the sofa and snuggled between the two men, looking from one to the other with childish curiosity. You're brothers, right? I knew it. Her eyes shone with excitement. That's why you're the same. It seems so, Ellie, Caleb replied, running a hand through his daughter's hair. Noah is my brother, so he's my uncle. Ellie's face lit up at the idea. I've never had an uncle before. I guess I am, Noah agreed, feeling a strange emotion at being called an uncle for the first time. Uncle Noah. Ellie tested the name, as if trying a new flavor. I like it. Are you going to visit us all the time? Noah looked at Caleb, unsure how to answer. He didn't want to make promises he couldn't keep, nor interfere with the dynamic between father and daughter. Caleb smiled at his daughter. Let's take it slow, Ellie. Noah and I have just met. We still have a lot to talk about. But he'll come back, right? The worry on her face was palpable. I'll be back, Noah assured her. I promise. Satisfied with the answer, Ellie turned her attention back to her toys, picking up the doll that represented her father. Now I need to make an Uncle Noah too, she declared, examining the doll critically. I'm going to need another bottle of the same size. While Ellie played, seemingly oblivious to the magnitude of what had just happened, Noah and Caleb continued their conversation in low voices. What do we do now? Caleb asked. I mean, finding out I have a twin brother after almost 30 years is surreal, Noah completed. Exactly. Noah watched Ellie playing on the floor between them, serene and happy with her new family discovery. To her, it was simple. 2 identical men must be brothers, and one of them was now her uncle. No complications, no existential questions about why they were separated or who abandoned them. I think we should start from the beginning, Noah suggested. To get to know each other's stories. Maybe visit your mother, Margaret. See if she has more information that my parents don't. Caleb nodded. She'll be thrilled to meet you. She always said I had a guardian angel somewhere. A guardian angel? Noah raised an eyebrow. She's a bit mystical at times, Caleb explained with an affectionate smile. She says she always felt that I wasn't alone in the world, that there was someone connected to me. Noah felt a chill. How many times had he himself had that inexplicable feeling that something or someone was missing from his life? Ellie looked up from her toys, glancing from one man to the other with a wisdom that seemed beyond her years. You're just the same, she said, but different too. How so, Ellie? Caleb asked. Uncle Noah looks more, she searched for the word, serious. And you, Daddy, you look more tired. She smiled, showing the gap from her missing tooth. But your eyes are the same. Noah and Caleb exchanged a look, recognizing the truth in the child's simple observations. They were physically identical, but their different lives had shaped them in distinct ways. One carried the weight of wealth and hard-won success, the other the weight of the daily struggle for survival. And yet, in that silent moment of recognition, something fundamental changed for both of them. A missing piece of the puzzle of their lives had finally found its place. As the sun set outside, coloring the small apartment in golden hues, 2 identical men sitting on a worn-out sofa discovered that after nearly 30 years of living as strangers, they were no longer alone in the world. And Ellie, the little creature who had inadvertently brought them together, watched it all with bright eyes, as if she knew, somehow, that this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. The following weeks brought a new routine for Noah. 3 times a week, after work, he would park his Aston Martin a few blocks from Caleb's building and walk the rest of the way. At first, He did this to avoid drawing attention in the modest neighborhood. Later, he realized he appreciated those few minutes of anonymous walking, observing the daily lives of ordinary people, something he rarely experienced in his world of skyscrapers and boardrooms. The first time he showed up with grocery bags, Caleb was visibly uncomfortable. "We don't need charity," he said, as Noah arranged fresh fruit, vegetables, and meat in the small refrigerator. "It's not charity," Noah replied simply. "It's what families do." The word family sounded strange coming from Noah. In his experience, family meant formality, emotional distance, and rigid expectations. But here, in this small apartment, he was beginning to experience a new meaning for the word. After the groceries came other gifts. New notebooks for Ellie, colored pencils, children's books. Small things that Noah bought without thinking, but that made the little girl's eyes sparkle as if she had received priceless treasures. On a rainy Tuesday, Noah arrived at the apartment drenched. Ellie ran to greet him as she always did, throwing herself into his arms without caring about his wet suit. "Uncle Noah, did you bring more books?" Noah smiled, pulling an illustrated storybook from his waterproof briefcase. "I did. And today we're going to practice our letters more okay?" Ellie nodded enthusiastically. In the last few days, Noah had discovered she was a quick learner. She was a naturally curious and intelligent child who absorbed knowledge like a sponge. The problem had never been a lack of ability, but a lack of opportunity. They sat at the small kitchen table while Caleb prepared dinner. Noah opened one of the notebooks he had brought and began to draw large, well-formed letters. "Remember what we saw yesterday? Let's repeat the alphabet." Ellie held the pencil with determination, her tongue sticking out the corner of her mouth in concentration. She began to copy the letters, her strokes becoming more and more confident. "A, B, C," she said as she wrote, "D, E, F." Noah watched with a mixture of pride and admiration. In just a few weeks, Ellie could already recognize all the letters and form simple words. Her progress was remarkable. "Now let's write your full name. Elisabeth," Ellie spelled carefully, writing each letter with attention. When she finished, she looked up at Noah for approval. "Perfect," he praised. "Now let's write Daddy E." Ellie wrote the word with ease, and then, without Noah asking, she continued, "Unclenoah." Something tightened in Noah's chest as he saw his name written by Ellie's small hand. It was the first time someone had written his name with such affection, as something precious and important. From the kitchen, Caleb watched the scene with a restrained smile. He still maintained a certain reserve with Noah, a mixture of pride, natural distrust, and perhaps even a bit of envy. But slowly, the barriers were coming down. "You have a way with kids," Caleb commented, stirring the pot of pasta. "I never thought of using games to teach like you do." "I had good teachers," Noah replied. "My parents hired the best tutors when I was a child." A momentary silence fell between them. Whenever Noah mentioned his privileged upbringing, the disparity between their lives became evident. It was an uncomfortable reminder of how the same DNA could lead to such different realities, depending solely on chance. "Daddy, can I show Uncle Noah what I made today?" Ellie asked, breaking the silence. "Of course, Princess." Ellie ran to her room and came back with a colorful drawing. It showed 3 stick figures, a small one in the middle, holding the hands of 2 identical figures, one on each side. "It's our family," she explained proudly. "Me, Daddy, and Uncle Noah." Noah felt a lump in his throat. It was the first time someone had included him in a family portrait that felt real. Not a formal, stiff photo like the ones that adorned the walls of his parents' and mansion, but a genuine drawing made with love. "It's beautiful, Ellie," he managed to say, hiding the emotion in his voice. Dinner was simple. Pasta with homemade tomato sauce and some vegetables Noah had brought. But to him, it tasted more delicious than any meal at the Michelin-starred restaurants he frequented with his clients. There was something about sharing a small table with mismatched silverware and paper napkins that brought a satisfaction he had never experienced. After dinner, while Caleb washed the dishes and Ellie got ready for bed, Noah noticed a crumpled envelope on the kitchen counter. The red paper and bold letters, "Final Notice," were hard to ignore. Caleb noticed his glance and quickly tucked the envelope into a drawer. "It's nothing," he said, in a tone that clearly indicated otherwise. Noah didn't press. He had learned that his brother had a fierce pride and did not easily accept direct help. The groceries and gifts for Ellie were tolerated, but any mention of money or Caleb's financial situation was met with resistance. Later, as Noah was about to leave, Ellie appeared in her pajamas to say goodbye. She hugged her uncle tightly, as she always did. "Uncle Noah," she said in a low voice, as if sharing a secret, "a man came and yelled at Daddy yesterday. He said if he doesn't pay, we'll have to leave here." Noah's heart sank. He looked at Caleb, who was in the kitchen and apparently hadn't heard. "Don't worry, Ellie," he said, crouching down to her level. "Everything will be okay. Promise? I promise." After putting Ellie to bed, Caleb returned to the living room. He found Noah still standing in the same spot, thoughtful. "Everything all right?" Caleb asked. "We need to talk," Noah replied. Caleb sighed, as if he knew what was coming. "Ellie told you about the landlord, didn't she?" Noah nodded. "Why didn't you tell me you were having trouble with the rent?" "Because it's not your problem," Caleb replied, a hint of irritation in his voice. "I can handle it." "How? With more odd jobs that barely pay the bills?" The words came out harsher than Noah intended. He saw Caleb's face harden, and he realized he had touched a raw nerve. Look, I know you're trying to help," Caleb said, controlling his voice so as not to wake Ellie. "And I appreciate what you've done for us, but I don't need you coming here with your money and—" "It's not about money," Noah interrupted. "Or rather, it's not just about money." Caleb crossed his arms, waiting for Noah to continue. "I want to offer you a job." Caleb's expression changed from irritation to surprise. "A job at your company?" Noah nodded. "You have experience with electronics, right? My company is expanding its IT department. We need skilled technicians." "I don't have a college degree," Caleb argued, "or corporate experience. You have skill and intelligence. The rest you can learn." Caleb looked away, clearly torn between his pride and practical need. "Why are you doing this, Noah? Is it pity? Guilt for having had better luck in life?" Noah shook his head. "No, it's because—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Because you deserve more than odd jobs. And I need you as much as you need me." Caleb stared at him, surprised by the honesty in Noah's voice. "You need me? How?" Noah hadn't prepared this part of the speech. He wasn't a man accustomed to expressing vulnerabilities or emotional needs. But at that moment, looking at the face identical to his own, he felt that the truth was the only option. "All my life, I felt like something was missing. I built a career, an empire, but I never had a real family. I never had someone who cared about me, not for what I could offer or represent." Noah paused, feeling strangely exposed. "In the last few weeks, I've discovered what was missing. It was this. These pasta nights on chipped plates, these drawings stuck to the fridge, this feeling of belonging." Caleb said nothing for a long moment. His face, usually easy to read, was indecipherable. "I'm not offering charity," Noah continued. "I'm offering a fair trade. You get a job that pays well and offers stability. I get—" He hesitated. "A connection with the only person in the world who can understand what it's like to be me." A silence stretched between them, filled only by the sounds of the city at night coming through the open window. Finally, Caleb gave a slight smile, the same smile Noah saw in the mirror, but rarely directed at other people. "So when would I start?" Noah felt a wave of relief. "Monday. I'll get everything ready." Caleb extended his hand and Noah shook it. It was a simple, even formal gesture, but laden with meaning. A bridge being built between two worlds, two lives that should never have been separated. As he walked down the stairs of the building that night, Noah Bennett, the lonely billionaire who had built a tech empire, realized he had just made the most important investment of his life. Not in stocks or real estate, but in people, in family. And for the first time in a long time, he felt he was on the right path. Margaret's small apartment was on the ground floor of an old building, just a few blocks from Caleb's place. It was a modest place, but impeccably clean and organized. Potted plants of all sizes occupied the windowsill, bringing life to the simple environment. Noah felt his heart race as he waited at the door. Caleb had insisted he go alone, saying this moment belonged just to the two of them. Even so, Noah wished his brother were there. Caleb would know how to act, what to say. Noah, on the other hand, felt completely lost. The door opened, revealing a woman with grey hair tied in a simple bun. She wore a modest floral dress and a wool cardigan, despite the moderate warmth of the day. Her eyes, though marked by time and a life of hardship, still possessed a surprising vivacity. Noah recognized her immediately from the photo Caleb had shown him. It was Margaret, the woman who had raised his brother, who had loved and protected him while he himself was growing up in a mansion on the other side of the city. "Mrs. Reynolds?" Noah asked, his voice strangely tense. "I'm Noah Bennett. Caleb must have mentioned I was coming." Margaret's face lit up with a warm smile. "Noah, of course. Come in, dear. Caleb has told me so much about you." She stepped aside to let him in, watching him with a gaze that seemed to penetrate beyond the surface. Noah noticed her eyes were misty. "I'm sorry," she said, wiping a tear with the sleeve of her cardigan. "It's just, the resemblance is incredible. Is like looking at Caleb in expensive clothes." Noah smiled, trying to hide his own nervousness. "Everyone says that." Margaret led him to a small living room, a sofa with handmade cushions, a coffee table with a vase of wildflowers, and simple shelves filled with well-worn books and small mementos. "Please, sit." "I've made tea." Noah obeyed, sitting awkwardly on the sofa while Margaret went to the kitchen. Through the open doorway, he could see her preparing a tray, her hands slightly trembling. "Caleb told me how you met," she said from the kitchen. "Through little Ellie. That girl has a gift for connecting people." "She's special," Noah agreed. "Very smart, too." Margaret returned with a tray holding an antique porcelain teapot, visibly valuable but with small, visible repairs, and two mismatched cups. She poured the tea with the grace of someone who values small daily rituals. "Thank you," Noah said, accepting the cup. Margaret sat in the opposite armchair, studying him with attentive eyes. "Oh, you have her eyes," she said suddenly. Noah frowned, confused. "Whose?" "Your mother's, your biological mother." The cup trembled slightly in Noah's hand. You knew her?" Margaret nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving Noah's face. "I did, yes, in fact, I knew her very well." She paused, taking a sip of tea as if to gather courage. "Her name was Elena." "Elena Vasquez." "Elena," Noah repeated, testing the name, feeling its weight. A name for the woman he had never known, the woman who had left him in a basket on a stranger's doorstep. "She was young," Margaret continued, "very young and very alone." Noah placed his cup on the coffee table, unable to drink or do anything but listen. "How did you know her?" Margaret sighed, looking at a distant point as if watching the past unfold before her eyes. "We worked together in the same house." Noah felt a chill run down his spine. "Worked? As maids," Margaret completed, without shame or hesitation. "At the Bennett house, your adoptive parents." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Noah felt as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. "Elena was younger than me," Margaret continued, her voice soft. "She was only 19 when she started working there. I had already been at the house for nearly a decade." "She worked for my parents," Noah repeated, still trying to process the information. "And she got pregnant." Margaret nodded. "Die by the gardener, a young man named Miguel. He disappeared as soon as he found out about the pregnancy." "And my parents? Did they know?" Mrs. Bennett suspected Elena tried to hide her belly for as long as she could, but Margaret shrugged. By the 8th month, it was impossible to hide. She was let go, of course. With a good reference and some money, but still let go. Noah tried to imagine the scene, his biological mother, young and pregnant, being sent away from the house where her son would grow up years later, never knowing his origin. What happened next? "She came to live with me. I had a tiny apartment, barely big enough for one person, let alone two and a baby on the way. But I couldn't leave her on the street." Margaret smiled sadly. Then you were born. You? Plural? Identical twins, so perfect, so small. Margaret's eyes filled with tears again. Elena wasn't ready. She could barely take care of herself, let alone two babies. Noah felt a lump in his throat. What did she do? She made a decision. The hardest decision a mother can make. Margaret took a deep breath. She knew the Bennets. She knew they were good people, that they could give one of you what she could never offer. So, one night, she left you on their doorstep with a note. "Take good care of him," Noah murmured. Margaret nodded. She cried for days after that. But she knew she had done the right thing for you. And Caleb, why didn't she leave both? She couldn't. She couldn't part with both her children at once. Margaret's voice broke. And I promised I would help her with the other baby. Noah stared at Margaret, a suspicion growing in his mind. Where is Elena now? The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret lowered her head, her hands now visibly trembling. She passed away, Noah, 6 months after you were born, an infection that wasn't treated properly. Back then, we didn't have money for good doctors. And Caleb? He stayed with me, Margaret answered simply. Elena made me promise to take care of him, to love him as if he were my own. And that's what I did. Noah felt a tear run down his face. He couldn't remember the last time he had cried before finding Caleb, and now it seemed he couldn't stop. Why did you never tell him the truth? About Elena? At first, he was too little to understand. Later, I was afraid he would feel abandoned, rejected. So I just told him he was adopted, that his biological mother couldn't keep him. Margaret wiped away a tear. It wasn't a lie, just a half-truth. Noah nodded, understanding. The same reason his adoptive parents had never told him about his adoption. Suddenly, Margaret stood up, went to a small chest of drawers and opened the top drawer. She returned with a simple wooden box, worn with time. This belonged to Elena. I thought you might like to have it. Noah accepted the box with trembling hands. Inside, there was a small silver religious medal, a faded photo of a young woman with dark hair and large eyes, his eyes, he realized with a shock, and a piece of embroidered fabric, probably part of a dress. It's all I have of her, Margaret said softly. Noah looked at the woman before him, not his biological mother, but the woman who had raised his brother with love, who had preserved these few memories for almost 30 years. Why are you telling me all this now? Margaret's eyes met his, and there was a deep sadness in them. Because I'm sick, Noah. Sicker than Caleb knows, and I don't want to take these secrets with me. Noah's heart tightened. How long? The doctors aren't sure. Months, maybe. The heart is too weak. Without thinking, Noah took Margaret's hands in his. They were small hands, marked by a lifetime of hard work but surprisingly warm. And my mother was a maid in your parents' house, Margaret continued, tears now streaming freely down her face. I knew they were good. That's why I left you there. It was the only right thing I could do. Noah realized with a shock that Margaret was speaking as if she were Elena, as if, after all these years of caring for Caleb in her place, the identities of the two women had merged in her mind. You did much more than that, Noah said softly. You raised Caleb. You gave him love, values, strength. You made him the wonderful man he is today. That's much more than just one right thing. Margaret smiled through her tears, squeezing Noah's hands. You're exactly as I imagined you would be. At that moment, Noah made a decision that would change his life forever. I'm going to take care of you, he said, with a certainty that surprised himself. The best doctors, treatments, whatever is necessary. Oh no, dear, I can't accept. It's not an offer, Noah interrupted gently. It's a promise. You took care of my brother when I couldn't. Now it's my turn to take care of you. Margaret looked at him for a long time, as if seeing beyond the expensive suit and the facade of the successful businessman to the essence of the boy Elena had left in a basket so many years ago. You have her heart too, she said simply. And as the afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating the plants Margaret cared for so lovingly, Noah Bennett felt another piece of his life's puzzle fall into place, not completing the picture, but certainly making it clearer. The school uniform seemed too big for Ellie's small body. The navy blue skirt fell below her knees, and the sleeves of the white shirt had to be rolled up several times. Still, standing at the apartment door that Monday morning, she looked like the happiest child in the world. "How do I look?" she asked, twirling to show off the complete uniform. "Like a real student," Caleb replied, adjusting the bow tie that was part of the uniform. Noah, watching the scene leaning against the doorframe, felt a lump in his throat. In the past few weeks, since he had decided to take care of Margaret, so much had changed. Caleb now worked in the IT department at Bennett Enterprises, where he quickly distinguished himself with his natural tech skills. Margaret had been moved to one of the best hospitals in the city, where she was receiving treatment for her heart condition. And Ellie, little Ellie who used to clean windshields at a traffic light, was about to start her first day at Westfield Preparatory School, one of the best private institutions in the city. "Ready for the big day?" Noah asked, approaching. Ellie nodded, though her eyes revealed a mix of excitement and nervousness. "What if the other kids don't like me?" "Impossible not to like you," Noah assured her. "Just be yourself. Remember what we talked about. You don't have to tell anyone about before." Before. A simple word that carried so much meaning. Before the meeting at the traffic light. Before they discovered they were a family. Before Ellie had a billionaire uncle who insisted on enrolling her in the same school he had attended as a child. "I remember," she replied, "and if anyone asks, I'll say I lived in another state." "Exactly." Noah crouched down to her level. "And most importantly, have fun. School can be an amazing place." Caleb checked his watch. "Time to go. We don't want to be late on the first day." Initially, Noah had offered his driver to take Ellie every day, but Caleb had insisted on taking her himself. "I want to be a present father," he had said. "I don't want her to grow up like we did, feeling like something is missing." The drive to school was in Caleb's new car, a gift from Noah that he had reluctantly accepted, only after Noah argued it was a matter of safety for Ellie. It was modest compared to the vehicles Noah owned, but still a significant upgrade from the public transport Caleb used to use. When they arrived at the school, Ellie squeezed Caleb's hand tightly. The imposing red brick building, with its wrought iron gates and impeccable gardens, looked like something from another world compared to the environment where she had grown up. "Everything will be fine," Caleb assured her, kissing the top of her head. "I'll be here at pickup time, I promise." Ellie hugged her father and then, to Noah's surprise, turned to hug him too. "Thank you, Uncle Noah," she whispered. "I'm going to learn everything I can." Noah felt something warm expand in his chest, a feeling that had become familiar in recent weeks, but still surprised him with its intensity. It was a kind of joy that no corporate acquisition or financial success had ever given him. "I know you will," he replied, adjusting the new backpack on her shoulders. "We're proud of you." They watched her walk to the gate, where a smiling teacher was waiting to welcome the new students. Ellie looked back once, waved, and then disappeared inside the school. She'll be fine," Noah said, noticing the concern on Caleb's face. "I know," Caleb sighed. "It's just, everything is changing so fast. Sometimes I wonder if she misses the simple life we had." "Kids are adaptable," Noah replied, "and some changes are for the better." Caleb nodded, and the two identical men walked side by side to the car. Anyone seeing them pass might think they were just two well-dressed executives on their way to work. They would never imagine the extraordinary journey that had brought them together. The day at the office was long for both of them. Noah tried to focus on meetings and reports, but his mind kept drifting back to Ellie and her first day of school. Caleb, on the other side of the building, was just as distracted, checking the clock every few minutes. When it was finally time to pick her up, they met in the company parking lot. Caleb drove, while Noah tried to hide his own anxiety. "Do you think she liked it?" Caleb asked, stopping at a traffic light. "We're about to find out," Noah replied. The traffic light, not the same one where they had met, but similar, made them both think about how it all began, how a chance encounter had changed their lives forever. Ellie was waiting for them at the school gate, chatting animatedly with a girl with pigtails. When she saw them, she said goodbye to her new friend and ran towards them, her face lit up with a smile that could melt the coldest heart. "Daddy! Uncle Noah!" She practically jumped into Caleb's arms. "School is amazing. It has a huge library and a science lab and a playground with real swings." Noah and Caleb exchanged looks of relief. Her excitement was contagious. "And did you make friends?" Caleb asked. "Yes, that's Zoe." Ellie pointed to the girl with pigtails. "She sits next to me. And there's Jamie and Sophie and Tyler." For the entire ride back, Ellie talked non-stop about her day. The kind teacher, the colorful classroom, the activities they did. Her enthusiasm was so genuine, so pure, that Noah felt a wave of gratitude for being able to provide this experience for her. "And the best part," Ellie said when they were almost home, "was when the teacher taught us to write our names in a special way." "A special way?" Noah asked. "With joined-up letters. It's called cursive," Caleb suggested. "That's it, cursive." Ellie opened her backpack and took out a notebook. "Look, I learned to write my name." On the page, with still uncertain but clearly recognizable strokes, was written Elizabeth in cursive letters, each one carefully formed. "It's beautiful, Princess," Caleb praised. "The teacher said I have nice handwriting," Ellie continued, pride evident in her voice. "She said I could be a writer one day if I want." "You can be whatever you want," Noah said. "A doctor, a scientist, a businesswoman. Can I be like you and Daddy?" The question took Noah by surprise. "What do you mean?" "You work with computers, right? You help people communicate." The teacher explained that technology brings people closer, like it brought you two together. Noah and Caleb exchanged a look. Ellie's perception, even at 6 years old, was impressive. "Yes," Noah replied finally. "I think that's exactly what we do." In the following weeks, Ellie flourished at school. Her reading and writing skills, already stimulated by Noah's teaching, developed rapidly. She absorbed knowledge like a sponge, bringing home enthusiastic stories about each new discovery. And as Ellie blossomed academically, something equally transformative was happening to Noah. The man who had once lived only for work, isolated in his luxury penthouse, now found himself eager to leave the office and spend time with his newfound family. Simple dinners in Caleb's small apartment became the highlight of his week. Helping Ellie with her homework, listening to Margaret's stories about Elena, playing video games with Caleb, common activities that filled a void Noah didn't even know existed. It was during one of these dinners, as he watched Ellie excitedly explain a science project to Margaret, that Noah made another decision that would change their lives. "See, I've been thinking," he said after Ellie had gone to bed, "about buying a house." Caleb raised his eyebrows. "Another one? I thought you already had a penthouse and a country house." "Not for me," Noah explained. "For us, for all of us." Margaret, who was knitting quietly in her armchair, stopped and looked at Noah. "What?" Caleb asked, clearly caught off guard. "Think about it," Noah continued. "This apartment is too small for you and Ellie. Margaret's is even smaller. My penthouse is big, but it wasn't made for a family." "Noah," Caleb interrupted, "I know you're trying to help, but we can't accept a house. You've already done so much for us." "I'm not offering charity," Noah insisted. "I'm proposing a practical solution, a place where we can all live together." "Together," Margaret repeated, her voice soft. "Yes." Noah looked at the woman, whose health had improved significantly with proper treatment. "You need care, Margaret. Caleb needs space for him and Ellie, and I—" He paused, searching for the right words. "I need you." Caleb studied his brother for a long moment. In the months since they had met, he had learned to read beyond Noah's successful businessman facade. He now saw the vulnerability in his eyes, the sincerity in his request. "You've already found this place, haven't you?" Caleb asked, knowing his brother well. Noah smiled. "Maybe." The house was everything Noah had promised and more, located in a quiet neighborhood, halfway between the business district and Ellie's school. It was a spacious 2-story building with a large backyard. It had 5 bedrooms, a library, a cozy living room, and a kitchen that made Margaret's eyes light up. "It's too big," Caleb protested when Noah took them to see it. "It's perfect," Ellie contradicted, already running through the garden, exploring every corner. The move happened gradually. First, It was Margaret's belongings, a few boxes that barely filled the trunk of Caleb's car. Then, Caleb and Ellie's, a bit more, but still surprisingly little to Noah, accustomed to the accumulation of material goods. His own belongings were the last to arrive. Noah realized, as he decided what to bring from his penthouse, that much of what he owned had no real meaning to him. Expensive furniture bought by decorators, works of art acquired as investments, gadgets he had used once and forgotten. In the end, he brought only what really mattered: his books, some photographs, the watch he had received from his father when he graduated from college. The house quickly transformed. Margaret brought her plants, which now occupied several sunny corners. Caleb installed smart sound and lighting systems, blending his tech expertise with the new environment. Ellie contributed her colorful drawings, which now adorned the refrigerator and several walls. And Noah brought himself, not the CEO of Bennett Enterprises, not the lonely billionaire, but simply Noah, the man who had finally found his place in the world. Together, they created new rituals. Saturday morning breakfast, when Caleb made pancakes in the shape of animals; Friday night movies, with Ellie choosing what they would watch; board games on Sunday afternoons, when Margaret invariably beat everyone at Scrabble. The living room, with its comfortable armchairs and large sofas, became the heart of the house. There, among colorful cushions and a fireplace they lit even on not-so-cold nights, the family gathered to share their day, plan the future, or simply be together. New photographs began to fill the shelves. Ellie on her first day of school, Caleb and Noah side by side at a barbecue in the garden, Margaret teaching Ellie how to make cookies. Images of a family built not by blood, though that was present too, but by choice, by love. And then came that special Sunday. Margaret had insisted on preparing a traditional lunch with recipes she had kept for years, waiting for a special occasion to share them. The dining room table, normally used only for formal occasions, was set with the best dinnerware they could find, an eclectic mix of pieces from different sets, just like the family gathered around it. The midday sun streamed through the large windows, illuminating Margaret's face as she watched her two sons side by side. Noah and Caleb, identical in appearance but so different in their life experiences, were chatting animatedly about a new project at the company. Ellie, sitting between them, looked from one to the other as if watching a particularly fascinating tennis match. Margaret served the last dish and finally sat down, a serene smile on her face. The table was filled with simple dishes, but prepared with love: roast chicken, golden potatoes, fresh vegetables from the garden she had started to cultivate. "Before we begin," she said, "I'd like to propose a toast." Noah poured wine for the adults and grape juice for Ellie, who was especially proud to have her own grown-up glass. "To family," Margaret said, raising her glass. "Our family, to family," they all repeated, clinking their glasses. Ellie, with the naturalness of children, reached out her hands, one to Noah and one to Caleb. They held them, and for a moment the three of them formed a perfect circle. "Now we're a real family, right?" Ellie asked, her eyes shining with the certainty of someone who already knows the answer. Noah looked at Ellie's smiling face, at the hands identical to his own holding the girl's small hand, at Margaret watching them with misty eyes. And he realized he no longer saw just physical resemblances, genetic coincidences, or the chance that had brought them together. He saw bonds, the invisible and powerful bonds that united them. He saw belonging, the feeling of finally being where he was meant to be. He saw love, real, imperfect, sometimes clumsy, but absolutely true. "Yes, Ellie," he replied, smiling. "Now we are a real family." And at that moment, in the golden light of an ordinary Sunday that had somehow become extraordinary, Noah Bennett finally found what he had been unknowingly searching for his entire life. Not success, not wealth, not power. A home, a real home. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.